Now, one of the big stories today, a drop in profit at Goldman Sachs. Shares of the financial giant are down the most since April of last year, as the firm has now reported its third straight quarterly earnings decline. Roy Cohen is a career counselor and executive coach, and for 14 years he served as Goldman Sachs' sole provider of career and outplacement support. And he's also the author of the Wall Street Professional Survival Guide. He is with us now to talk a little bit about this. Roy, thanks for joining us today. Let's talk about what's been going on at Goldman, because I noticed right away fixed income currencies and commodities trading has dropped there. It took a real hit, down, I think, 48% from a year ago. This is not a phenomenon, though, that only Goldman Sachs is experiencing.
No, it's an issue across the street. Absolutely.
So, you know, we saw also at Goldman bonuses come down a little bit, which a lot of people might say, all right, maybe they're coming back to reality. But at Goldman Sachs, when you see the bonus pool shrink, you see heads start to roll, don't you?
Well, I think in large part at most Wall Street firms, when bonuses shrink, that bonus pool doesn't like to be diluted among a lot more people. So folks get cut, and that's inevitable.
We saw actually $430,000 is what each employee would get if they spread it among all the employees. That sounds like a lot, but it compares to about $500,000 in the same period last year. And, of course, each of the employees doesn't get an equal share of the bonus pool.
Absolutely. Bonuses reflect the contribution that individuals make to the organization, and generally they're weighted more heavily towards people at the top of the organization. Absolutely.
So if Goldman Sachs is going to clean house now, I mean, it makes sense when the bonus pool shrinks, but you say, and you've worked at Goldman for a long time, they do this on a regular basis.
Well, I've provided outplacement consulting services to Goldman Sachs.
So you're the guy they go to.
Yes, absolutely.
You're the up-in-the-air guy.
Well, I would like to be compared to George Clooney. The fact is that a lot of firms nowadays have a force ranking system in place, and they look at either the bottom 15 or 25%, and those are the folks who are vulnerable.
So what do you do when you leave there? I mean, obviously having Goldman Sachs on your resume isn't going to hurt you in your job search. Do you see a lot of guys now going to other big banks, or is it still the trend that you go look for a smaller boutique, maybe even open up your own shop?
Well, I think there are a lot of options. Clearly, opening up one's shop is an option, and then there's a lot of money that can flow to that shop. Other firms are always excited to get Goldman folks, especially second or third tier firms. It's that is a destination, and a very obvious one. Then there's a buy side, and a lot of folks flirt with that. Private equity, hedge funds, clearly options for folks leaving the firm.
I have to say, for the record, David Vinier, in a conference call with analysts today, said that Goldman is still adding employees, especially in high-growth markets. What is he talking about there, high-growth markets?
Well, he's probably referring to asset management, wealth management, managing the assets of wealthy individuals and institutions. That's where a lot of firms are seeing increased hiring, and in regulatory and compliance areas as well.
Compliance, of course. Yeah. All right, hey, Roy, thanks so much for joining us. Roy Cohen there. We are going to take a quick break here on Bloomberg. We come back, we are going to... Well, let's check in right now and see how stocks are doing, even though it's not going to really make your day any more pleasant. The S&P 500 down now 1.2%. The Dow holding up a little bit better than the others because it's not so heavily tech-weighted, and tech is a real problem today, down about 0.3%. Zara Burton's going to talk about that in a little bit. NASDAQ leading the losses because of the tech problems, down 1.7%. Quick break, and we're back in just 2 minutes' time.
Welcome back to The Pulse with me, Andrea Catherwood. Now, the top firm on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, releases its quarterly earnings in just a couple of hours' time. Net income is set to improve on the previous quarter, but it will remain at roughly half of its levels from the same period in 2009. And while fixed income currencies and commodities, known as FICC, is traditionally the company's biggest money spinner, Credit Suisse forecasts a weaker finish in that area after what it calls choppy market conditions over the past year. Well, whatever Goldman Sachs and other banks report, there will be close scrutiny of how much bankers are making this bonus season. Regulators and politicians see limiting excess pay as one way to prevent the next financial crisis. So to guide us through the shifting sands of bankers and how much they are paid, we're with the author of the Wall Street Professionals Survival Guide, Roy Cohen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Mr. Cohen. You've had very close ties with Goldman over the years. What is the atmosphere like there before the announcement of the profits for the year and indeed the bonuses?
Andrea, I'm not currently working with Goldman. I work with clients who work on Wall Street. For many, many years, I was the point person for folks who are transitioning out of Goldman Sachs and work with them on identifying new opportunities and landing successfully in the marketplace. And so my experience now is very broad across many companies on Wall Street.
I mean, we're wondering really how people at Goldman are affected by all the hype in the media about how much they earn and about their bonuses. Do they care about quite a lot of negative publicity that they get?
I missed part of what you said, but do folks at Goldman Sachs care? I think there's a heightened sensitivity around press. Bankers in general, I think, enjoy the bonuses they're earning, and quite frankly, I think that they feel like they deserve to be paid what they're paid because they're highly trained experts. And there is the belief that when you do something that's so highly skilled that you should be compensated very fairly. So I think that Wall Street salaries are often paid a premium.
And tell me, does Wall Street feel different from other global financial centres around the world? Is there something special and different about Wall Street?
Well, typically, there are some issues that folks on Wall Street face. One is heightened sensitivity around separation. And around bonus time, there are often lots of moves that are made, both voluntary and involuntary. And I think that here in New York, a lot of folks are worried about shelf life, about appearances, about image, and about landing, transitioning seamlessly. And that's a very big concern for folks here.
And how much has changed since the crisis in terms of the way that those professionals need, the skills that they need to survive on Wall Street?
Well, historically, folks approach their careers and job search with an audience that has very short attention span. And when you make decisions very quickly, a job search is the equivalent of a marathon. And it's over the last few years, it's taken monumental effort for folks to be able to approach their searches with that understanding that it takes more than a quick hit. It's a series of efforts and activities, and it's a sustained relationship over many months, if not a year or two, to identify the right opportunity. And that's a relatively new concept for folks on Wall Street.
Okay, Roy Cohen, thank you very much indeed for joining us.